There are two types of communications that occur. There is the interpersonal communication, which is when we talk to each other, and then there is the intrapersonal communication when we talk to ourselves, when we communicate internally. Now understand that in order to engage in interpersonal communication, we must first engage in intrapersonal communication. So of course we all have our preferred method and style of communication. We each have a favorite way of communicating. Regardless of what that method and style is, we use these three steps. We access information, we refer to it, and we represent it. That could be in a very serious conversation between a parent and a child. It could be a serious conversation between two spouses. It could be a meeting such as this. It could be any circumstance. Regardless of that, in order for you to react to anything, any piece of information, whether it is verbal for me, auditory for you, I'm speaking, you're listening, or it's visual, or it's a feeling, you have to go in and refer to what is already there and then represent it. People use different senses in different sequences to go through these three steps. For example, you may be somebody who prefers to gather a lot of information simply by observing, which would say that you prefer to gather information visually. You then like to sit on it. Let it make sense to you. Just take your time. Let it sit. Let it find its spot. Until it's found its spot, you tend not to react. And then when you're ready, you will then represent it in a very soft, gentle way. Does that make any sense at all?
It does.
The three steps that I outlined in the process.
That's absolutely.
That is correct.
Sure.
In your case, it could be completely different from that. As a matter of fact, I would guess that it probably is. You tend to gather your information perhaps quickly. You're fast. And so you don't need to sit on things too long, and you react to things fast. And when you are not professionally engaged, you tend to kind of let things develop as quickly as they do. Does that make any sense to you at all? Is that correct?
I would say maybe sometimes, but definitely not all the time.
Okay. Tell us when it is correct and when it is not.
Well, I have a fine art background, so I definitely gather information visually, and often I don't speak until I've come up with something that I find relative or important in a way to explain it that's not offensive or comes off properly. But I think I have a tendency to be reactive also if it's a sensitive subject.
So what would be a sensitive subject for you?
Probably politics.
Politics is a sensitive subject, okay. That's it?
I mean, off the top of my head, politics, environmentalism, some sensitive subject.
So things that you hold dear for personal reasons, you label them as sensitive.
Sure.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And I noted with interest that when you were explaining the reason that you are the way you are, and I'm going to use the word intentionally to see how you feel about the word, you had a need to justify why you are the way you are.
Sure.
And you said, I have a fine arts background. And that was with a sense of justification, clarification?
I think clarification. It is a huge part of who I am and how I understand
But what
myself.
would make you clarify when the question hadn't been asked? Nobody asked you to clarify anything. You could have just made the statement.
Yes.
So here's what happened. You were in your reference mode where all this file lies, and the social skills kick in, as you point out. It is polite to explain to people the reasons why you're saying that you're saying. It has nothing to do with you processing the information. The information is processed, so that's the representation part in a very simplistic way.
Yeah.
Okay. Although everything that you said to me was a representation. Those weren't your exact thoughts as they came up. Everything. Humans are incapable, we are not wired that way, to say exactly what comes up. In fact, you're not even aware of everything that comes out. So since you're not aware of it, there is no way you can talk about it. So I can comfortably say that we are incapable of presenting. We must represent. And we go through these layers of the most commonly known social skills, but there is a whole bunch of other layers that we go through before we open our mouth and say something. And it all happens really fast.